This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Sheoldred the Apocalypse EDH deck. Welcome back to another installment of the Up and Up series. Today we are updating and upgrading Sheoldred the Apocalypse. In the description below you will find links to this build's deck tech, this build's up-to-the-moment deck list, as well as the video primer series for the Sheoldred deck. We've got 4 cards going in and 4 cards coming out, so let's get right to it with our very first edition of this video, and that's going to be Jet Medallion. We're in mono black, so let's make sure that all of our black spells are reduced by 1 generic mana. All of that for the investment of 2 generic mana. With the Jet Medallion going in and staying on our side of the battlefield and allowing us to reap the benefits of casting our black spells for 1 generic mana less, it is going to replace a one-and-done spell, which is Dark Ritual. Here we had an instant for 1 black mana, we add 3 black mana, and then that's all she wrote. We're going to get bigger bang for our buck with Jet Medallion. All we have to do is cast 3 spells, and we save almost the same amount of mana, considering it's black or generic or colorless. 3 mana is 3 mana, and over the long game, which sometimes the Sheoldred deck needs to do to win, we're going to get a lot more value out of Jet Medallion than we would Dark Ritual. So that Dark Ritual is out. Jet Medallion is in. Card number 2 going into the 99 of this build, it is Insatiable Avarice. Here we have a sorcery for 1 black mana plus, and I say plus because we can't cast it without adding an additional cost. So for 1 black mana and 2 generic mana, we search our library for a card, shuffle it, and then put that card on top of it. For 1 black mana and 2 black mana, target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life. Note that it is target player, which means we could turn Insatiable Avarice right to an opponent, and if Sheoldred is on our side of the battlefield when we do so, and guess what? They're going to lose a total of 9 life. 2 for each card drawn, plus the 3 life from the spell. Now, we also could pay 1 black, 2 generic, and 2 more black to do all of the things on this card. Very, very good versatile card here. We can tutor up something. We could draw cards and lose some life. And of course, if we have Sheoldred on our side of the battlefield, we're going to end up on the +3 side of that life loss. And we can just decide to pay this and make our opponent suffer by putting more cards into their hand. Who would have ever thought that drawing cards could be so painful? Well, you have it, and that's Sheoldred. So Insatiable Avarice is going in as a very nice versatile spell, and it's going to replace Invoke Despair. Here we have a sorcery for 1 and 4 black mana. Don't let the mana value fool you. This is just a mono black deck. That's not hard to cast here. It's more about what the spell does versus what Insatiable Avarice gives us. Target opponent sacrifices a creature. If they can't, they lose 2 life and we draw a card. Then we repeat this process for an enchantment and a planeswalker. So at best, this is going to have an opponent lose 6 life and we draw 3 cards. That's for 5 total mana. Honestly, I would rather have, and that's if they don't have any of the things to sacrifice. So if they have a creature, and they have an enchantment, and a planeswalker, we paid 5 mana to have them sacrifice 3 of those things, and then we get no cards in exchange for those things being sacrificed. For 5 mana, no thanks. I'll rather take the sorcery of Insatiable Avarice, have the versatility of what I can do with it, and just say Invoke Despair is out to make way for something that honestly gives us more options in gameplay, gives us more things that we can do, and I just like the versatility more than what Invoke Despair can give us. And that's just what we're going to go. And you can tell me in the comment section if you think that's a good play or maybe not so good of a play. Next card up, card number 3 going into the 99. That is Imp's Mischief. This is an instant for 1 and a black mana. We change the target of target spell with a single target. We lose life equal to that spell's mana value. I can say that many, many, many moons have passed since I have wanted to get a copy of this card, but it never became a card where I needed to go out and get immediately. It was one of those cards that just kind of floated around in my subconscious, like, yeah, that would be a good card. I like to put that into a deck, but it was never one of those things that, oh, I absolutely have to go and get it. Well, guess what? Opened it recently in a pack of Commander Masters, and I was like, all right, Sheoldred, you have another layer of protection here in Imp's Mischief. This will help to keep our commander on the battlefield, because let's face it, if she's not in play, we're going to have a bit of a struggle on our hands in winning the game. This is a Sheoldred-dependent deck, and we need to keep her on the battlefield. So any piece of protection, like Imp's Mischief, well, we're going to welcome that with arms wide open. With Imp's Mischief going into the 99, coming out, it's going to be Braid's Arisen Nightmare. Now, this is a little bit different. I usually don't go for non-creature spell versus creature spell, but I think in this instance, Braid's is not really getting the job done when it comes to opponent interaction. I'll explain that after we talk about what this card does. So Braids for 1 and 2 black mana is a 3/3. At the beginning of our end step, we may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. So I don't want to sacrifice any of those things. We are not a graveyard recursion build. We are not a graveyard synergistic deck. I know we're in mono black, but our focus is on card draw, peripheral card draw, forced card draw. We're not built to do what Braids wants to do. And even if we were to make these sacrifices, opponents may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it, and if they don't, they lose 2 life and we draw a card. Well, we're not hurting for card draw, and the sacrifice of our opponents, if it were forced to be done, then maybe Braids would still have a place in the 99 here, but it may sacrifice it. So a player is probably going to want to pay, at least from my experiences in having Braids on my side of the battlefield, opponents are going to pay the 2 life, and we can just take the card. They don't want to lose their important artifact or creature or land or planeswalker or whatever it is, and honestly, I never felt good sacrificing these things in order to trigger Braids. So, like I said, this isn't a graveyard build. Braids is not fitting in here, and we're going to acquiesce to a better piece of card, to a better card like Imp's Mischief, which is going to protect our commander, and we're going to say adios to Braids. I mean, Braids just doesn't fit into what we're doing with this build. All right, that brings us to the last swap of cards for this build, and it is the one I am most excited for. I cannot wait until I can have this creature on the battlefield next to Sheoldred to see all of the horribly wicked things and deranged things that's going to happen. I simply cannot wait to see these two working together. That creature that's going into the 99, who, let's face it, is probably going to be Sheoldred's BFF right now, it's Carrick, son of Yawgmoth. It's a little bit pricey. It may seem it's a little bit pricey, but remember, we're going to be gaining oodles and oodles of life in this deck. So Carrick is a 2/2 body for 4 generic mana and 3 black Phyrexian mana. Now, to pay Phyrexian mana, we either pay the mana in its color, so here it would be either 3 black, or we can pay 2 life. So we don't have to worry about paying 7. We can pay any combination of 7 black mana. Well, not 7. We can pay any combination of the 7, or we can go down to 4 mana and just pay 6 life. Which, to get Carrick onto the battlefield as quickly as possible, we may want to entertain paying that 6 life. With Sheoldred, we're going to gain that back very, very quickly. So, what Carrick does is for each black mana symbol and a cost, we may pay 2 life rather than pay that mana. And whenever we cast a black spell, we put a +1/+1 counter on Carrick. Carrick does have lifelink, so if for any reason we're running low on some life, and we have to think that Carrick would have a ton of +1/+1 counters on him from all the black spells that we would be casting, we can simply turn him sideways and hope to strike a creature or an opponent to gain a bunch of life. But what's even more enticing, what's even more exciting, what's even more alluring and ravishing about this Carrick and Sheoldred combination is so many of our spells are draw card spells. So for the black mana cost, we pay the 2 life, We cast the spell, we draw some cards, Sheoldred gains us the life back each time we draw the cards, and all we have to do is keep cycling through our deck, paying life for black mana symbols, casting the spells, gaining the life back when we draw the cards with Sheoldred. I can't wait to get these two in unison. I think it's going to be a game-altering combination whenever I pull Sheoldred out at the EDH table. I am that confident that those two are going to play off of each other so well. Can't wait, baby. Can't wait. So with Carrick going in, coming out is going to be Gix Yawgmoth Praetor. Now, this one is much less in initial mana investment, but much more for mana cost. But much more for an activated cost that I don't really think is going to be all that relevant to what we're trying to do. So here we have 1 and 2 black mana for a 3/3, and whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of our opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, they draw a card. See, this is dangerous for us, because if Gix is on our side of the battlefield and Sheoldred isn't, our opponents are going to want to draw cards, and for 1 life, that's not going to be a deterrent. So without Sheoldred, Gix is kind of hurting us when it's out on our side of the battlefield. And for its activation cost, we pay 4 and 3 black to discard X cards, which we may not want to discard our cards. We want our cards because we like them. We put them in our deck. To do so, we do that, and then we exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. We may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. Yes, I get it. They're free spells. They're free cards. We don't have to worry about paying the mana for them, but they're not going to help us win the game with Sheoldred. We want our opponents drawing cards and losing life that way, not from random cards from the top of their deck. Carrick is going to do more for Sheoldred than Gix ever did, and I guarantee it. But I want to hear what you think about it in the comment section below. Let me know. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.